be smoking on that motherfucker voodoo. I be real just like voodoo.
All right, what's up? Welcome back to the World Hard Enduro podcast. As you can see, I mean, if you're watching the video and not listening to it, we are inside Chris Birch's shed. Pretty famous, iconic little spot this. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Cheers, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to my shed.
So, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the hard enduro stuff that you've been involved in, throughout your life. Where did it actually all begin for you getting onto the off-road dirt bikes?
Motorbikes have always been like a family thing.
Yeah.
I went to all the antenatal classes in my mum's tummy on a trials bike. My granddad rode bikes in World War II as a dispatch rider and that sort of stuff, I think. And we've got photos of like granddad in the war on his motorbike. My dad was actually racing the ISDE on a KTM the day I was born. Mum's ridden trials and a few enduros and trail ridden her whole life. And I don't ever actually remember learning how to ride a motorbike. It was just always around bikes, and pretty common story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I remember you telling me a little bit about your mountain biking stages. So like when did you go from motorbikes to mountain bikes or mountain bikes to motorbikes?
Kind of always. Actually, a big part of the mountain bike, like every kid, like grew up riding bikes, bicycles. I didn't want to. If I could ride my bicycle, I'd ride my bicycle. Why the hell would I bother walking? I could ride up the steps onto the back deck at home. So if I needed to go and see where Dad was on the farm, I'd jump off the steps, go find Dad on the farm, come back, hop back up the steps, lean the bike about the house, and go back into the kitchen, sort of thing. Like the bicycle was. Yeah, I grew up in the country, so it was everything. It was your freedom, it was your transport, it was my sport. It was, my bike was so important to me. And I remember snapping the forks out of my bike on the Friday afternoon of a long weekend, and just this feeling of like, what am I going to do?
Yeah,
like everything I had planned for the next 3 days revolves around this bike, and I've just snapped the forks out of it. And then embarrassingly got into bicycle trials, way before Danny McCaskill made it look cool. Just guys hopping around on the back wheel, fidgeting about the place. But I think that taught me a lot. And then I raced a bit of downhill back in the days. I really enjoyed racing the downhill. Never had much money for it because any spare money was all going to motorbike racing. But New Zealand used to have a hardtail class in the National Downhill Champs.
Okay.
And the regional races, there's always a hardtail class. So that was me. I was racing the hardtail and that sort of stuff. And I ended up making a bit of a name for myself as like the hardtail guy. And people thought it was like something I was trying to do, like to create attention and that sort of stuff. Or I had this like, hardtail, hardcore or something. I just couldn't afford a downhill bike.
Yeah.
But like moto helmet, old like swan dry like farmer's jacket. Let's go racing, and it was really fun.
That's cool. And then, so when did you progress, or at that same time that you were doing downhill mountain biking, were you doing trials bike riding or any moto stuff at that time? Like when did you move across full time or getting onto the motorbikes like for a longer period? Yeah,
so the trials kind of, I started off my motorbike stuff with more trials. That kind of died off when I was about like 16, 17 sort of thing. Trials is a great sport. It really is. And it's a great starting point. But especially in New Zealand, it doesn't hold on to guys in their teens, 20s sort of thing. Like I went back to a trials competition recently after a very, very long time. And it's basically, it's like kids and the parents of the kids. And no one in that sort of 20, 30 gap at all. And I think I basically just got a bit sick of it and just wanted to go faster and do something else. So by the time I got into racing downhill and playing around mountain bikes, trials had already gone. Right. And that was actually a big part of why I got into mountain bike trials. Because I couldn't afford to do trials and like enduro. It had to be one or the other. But I still had that itch for trials. Yeah. And got into like street trials. The main reason getting into that was because I wanted to ride the features and stuff that you'd see in Auckland City that you would get arrested for riding on a motorbike. So okay, but you can get away with it for riding on a bicycle. So
very cool.
Yeah, and then sort of got into enduros. probably first Enduro was when I was about sort of 16, 17, around there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, what year was that roughly?
So
Don't want to date
no,
it.
it would have been in 96.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, XR200.
All right.
Let's go.
Just
3-hour sand race on an
All
XR200.
right.
You know, overheat the shock on the first half
Yeah.
hour. Don't know what that's about.
Just keep on going.
Yeah.
And then when did like hard enduro really start setting in for you? Like getting into the more like trials, like riding on a enduro bike?
Kind of, again, it was a cash thing. So it didn't have the money to do trials and enduro bikes. So I wanted to get into enduro. So sold the trials bike, got a KDX 200, started racing enduros.
Yeah.
But still had that trials background and still wanted to play around doing trials stuff. And, you know, I several times I'd put trials tires on the KDX and go and compete in a trial. So my dad was still going. I still wanted to kind of be active in that in some way. So I was accidentally training for a sport that I didn't even know existed.
Right. That's quite interesting, actually. Yeah, using the KDX in trials like situations with a trials tire, like entering into trials. Like
this is going back a long time, but I remember I went and decided to go and do a 2-day national trial. And the first day I borrowed a trials bike for it, and I was all over the place. And I didn't enjoy it at all. I looked at the rule book that night. Now, the only eligibility rule is you have to have these tires. Screw it. I had my enduro bike in the back, my 300 at that point, KTM 300. So swapped the tires over and did the next day on the enduro bike and finished higher on the enduro bike.
No ways. That's pretty cool. I mean,
it shows you how crap I was at trials. But
or how good you were inside the enduro bike.
Yeah, but and at that stage, I didn't really know what that hard enduro existed.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the events that you've entered inside your life. Like I know we're sitting here in your shack, we've got like endless amount of trophies in the back here. Romaniacs, you've got Sea to Sky, you've got pretty much a lot of them placed up there. Like when did it really begin racing the tough stuff on an enduro bike?
So my first ever hard enduro was Red Bull Romaniacs. I should be able to remember this, but it must have been 07.
Okay.
And up until then, I genuinely, honestly didn't know hard enduro existed.
Right.
You know, we were a long way from the scene down here in New Zealand. And I'd done several races back home, like national races, domestic races sort of stuff, and a bit of stuff in Aussie as well. And like whenever it rained or wherever it got hard, they'd always pull those sections out. And I felt like when my skill set became relevant, it was always taken away from me.
Okay.
At that point, like classical enduro was becoming more and more motocross based. It was all about the special tests and the actual, like just being able to get there, and you know the self-reliance side of it was kind of going away a bit. And I think it's kind of swung back from that now, but for a while it was basically just just how fast you go around a flat corner essentially, and that wasn't me. And we had the ISDE, the 6-day in New Zealand, and the last day it just poured with rain, and like, I was passing like world enduro champs guys in the bush that were just totally stuck, and I'm going around the outside of them, that sort of stuff. I'm like feeling like this is going to be the best day of my life, like so stoked, and get to the finish on a day's cancelled.
No.
And you know, with maturity and looking back at it now, it was what they had to do. Like basically they had a civil defense level issue. Like, there was hundreds of people stuck in the mud in this forest in the middle of nowhere. This big weather bomb came in, like cold, you know, hypothermic sort of thing. Like it was definitely an issue. But in that moment, I was like, again, like this is something I've been building up to for like a year and a half. You know, it's the ISDE is in my country. Finding my skill set comes to the fore, and I'm taken away again. So that, you know what? To hell with enduros, to hell with motorbikes.
Yeah,
I'm out. And I had everything for sale, and I was just going to go and race mountain bikes and just go like sort of lean more into the downhill side of things and see where that could take me. And then a mate of mine sent me a YouTube clip of it was Martin van Aertemets standing at one of the time controls at Romaniacs, and it's just heaving with rain. And it's like, yeah, we know the track going to be very treacherous, very extreme conditions, but if one person makes it, we'll keep the race going. I'm like, oh, what is this? And did a bit more research and entered it that night. all right, this is happening. We're going here, boys.
Yeah.
At that point, it looked like someone had invented the perfect race for me.
Right.
Yeah. And then from there, just like, okay, how are we actually going to make this work? Like, no money, no support, or minimal support sort of thing. How are we going to go and race on the other side of the world?
And I guess at that time as well, like such a new sport, the bikes weren't really catered for that. You were doing a lot of modifications to motorcycles to make it a bike that can get up sections like that. I mean, tire choice and tire development comes into play at this point as well.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I feel really fortunate. Like, I got into hard enduro at a time where it was such a new sport. It was actually quite a level playing field.
Okay.
No one had fancy prototype bikes. No one had any real like stuff that you couldn't get. Like, no one was rocking up to these events with, you know, huge support crews, that sort of stuff. So it made it a very, very level playing field. So someone like me could come from New Zealand, bring your tires, bring your moose that you've kind of just got right, you know, handlebars, a few bits and pieces, that sort of thing, and be competitive. Whereas, you know, like every sport progresses, it gets more and more specialized. And, you know, these days, the idea of being able to probably rock up on a completely stock bike is probably long gone.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you're going to finish, maybe you're going to, but you're not going to be podium guy. But it was, when I was in those early days in particular, it was a very, very level playing field. And that was, I'm very fortunate that I got to be a part of that.
What was your favorite race that you've entered?
Romaniacs by far. Like, I just loved the adventure of it, like, especially in the early days. Like, it was so loose. Like, you'd be sitting on the start line and you're like, right, I had absolutely no idea what I'm in for today. Like, other than I know it's going to be chaos. Yeah. But yeah, you'd be getting lost. You'd be riding around in circles at the top of these mountains, just trying to find your way through. Back in the days, the GPSs we used to use in the early days, they were wrist mounted.
Yeah, I remember.
They were
very small.
Absolute rubbish. And as soon as it got cloudy and you went into the trees, they would just come up with weak GPS signal, okay.
No.
And the only button you could press was okay. Like, there is absolutely zero that is okay about this, but sure. And like the marking, like basically Martin was trying to mark the entire event himself. So the marking was sporadic at times, to say the best. So you just had to really have I think he's trying to take us this way. It feels like we're going across the top of this mountain. So you're basically just like, you're competitively following your nose sort of thing. I just love that, the adventure of it. Yeah. And, you know, as that event and as the sport has progressed, I feel like the adventure part of it has come back a bit. But it's way more of a race now as well.
Yeah, and I guess safety concern is a big part of that. I mean, back in order, or back in that day, like
and the numbers as well, right? Like, I think there was like 150 bikes the first year I rode it.
Yeah, now we're talking 1,000.
Yeah. So imagine you got 1,000 guys following their nose across the top of the mountain. That ain't gonna go so great.
Not so well.
Yeah.
And tell me a bit about your time inside South Africa, because you raced inside South Africa, inside the Enduro Championships there. You won multiple Roof of Africas. Like, what was that all about for you and inside your career?
Yeah, South Africa has definitely been really, really good to me. Yeah. A lot of love for that country. So the whole South African thing started off, I was at KTM in Austria waiting on a guy to... Sup, dog? Sorry.
South Africa.
So I was at KTM in Austria, and there was a guy there in the reception area that we were both waiting on the same dude. And he was having a South African guy, Mark, and he was having a big whinge about how much it had cost him in a taxi to get from Salzburg out to KTM. Yeah. And so I was over there racing Erzberg, and I had no money, but Red Bull had paid for a rental car for me. Okay. I was like, right, if you fill this thing up with gas and buy me lunch, I'll drop you back to Salzburg on the way to Erzberg. And we got chatting the whole time. He's telling me all about the Roof of Africa. I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds sick. I'd love to do it one day. Like, let's exchange email addresses, keep in touch. And he got in touch with me, and he's like, hey, I want you to come and do it this year. I'm like, man, like, I don't think I can swing it this year. Like, I just don't have the funds for it. It's just not going to happen. And I think he thought I was trying to brush him off. He's like, what do you mean? Like someone that's sponsored by Red Bull and KTM doesn't have the money to come to South Africa? I'm like, dude, I actually ended up taking a screenshot of my bank account. You know, hey, look, I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm broke. Like I don't have any money. And it all went quiet for a bit. And then he got back in touch and he said, hey, look, if you can get yourself here, we'll take care of you. Yeah. And he managed to sort of convince all his mates to kind of help club in together and sort of put a package together. So I was sponsored by a bearings shop, a bottle shop, a pet store, the local slumlord, basically.
Right.
Like, you know, all these different dudes all came together. And lucky it was in that sort of era when you could be competitive on a stock bike. Got a stock KTM 300, put some guards on it, and we ended up winning it the first year. Yeah. Which was it was a pretty big achievement. Yeah. And then winning it the next 2 years as well. And from there, I guess, had a pretty high profile in South Africa. You probably know more about it than I do.
Yeah, exactly.
And then from there, got the phone call to go and live there for 2 years and race full time over there. And like at that point, I was still essentially a highly committed amateur racer.
Right.
Yeah. So
still working a full time job. Yeah. Trying to pay for the races and everything.
Exactly. Well, not full time. I couldn't actually hold down a full time job. Right. I was way too much. So I'd go. It was funny. Like for a while, it was almost like living a double life. Like you'd fly to Europe. You know, do well at the race, you know, podiums, that sort of stuff, you know, autographs, fans, you know, going out to these fancy nightclubs and that sort of shit. Sorry, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then come back to New Zealand, overalls on, back to engineering, just try and find a way to pay some bills before the next one comes along. Yeah. And so, my first year as a professional motorcycle racer was when I was 31.
No, in South Africa.
In South Africa,
paid full time. Like for me as well, like I was part of the enduro scene and the off-road scene at that time, racing inside the races, and the economy behind off-road racing was just so strong. There was just so much money in it in South Africa. There was thriving junior national races and senior national series. And when you came over to South Africa, you definitely just raised the bar like super high, super quickly. Like we thought, or most of the guys thought, that we were fast, and then you came over and realized, like, it made us realize, like, we've got some work to do here. Cool. So it definitely raised the bar. And also for the likes of, I mean, at that stage, Wade Young was a rider in the hard enduro season that was in the junior national. Travis Teasdale, Brett Swanepoel, endless amount of really top tier South African riders was seeing you doing what you're doing and then going like, okay, that's kind of that's where we have to go, you know? So it was pretty cool to see.
One thing, like, I'm quite proud of what we did in South Africa as well. Like, there's the riding side of it, but there's the, like when I got there, the culture was all about how hard are you training? Like, you know, how many times did you go to the gym this week? Right. How many Ks did you do on your bicycle? Yeah. Well, let's maybe park the bicycle up and let's go for a ride. Yeah. And work on technique. And yeah, it seemed like there was so much money there. Everyone was going really hard, but no one was really having that much fun. And they go to the race and everyone's just taking it so serious. I'm like, like you can be committed to your sport. You can be serious, but you don't have to be a dick about it. Like you can have a good time. And it's so cool seeing like guys like, you know, what Billy and Manny and that sort of thing are doing, like through their blogs and that sort of thing. They're taking that same attitude into hard enduro now. Like, yes, we are 100% committed to this, but we're going to have a good time doing it as well. And that seemed like it was missing in South Africa. Yeah. And I feel like
not wrong.
We kind of brought that in. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool to see. And then also moving on to like what bikes you rode. So you obviously were riding a KTM 300 inside the national series there, doing the Roof of Africa on a KTM 300, pretty much a standard hard enduro bike, or, you know, a bike for tech. But then coming back, I think it was 2012, if I'm not mistaken, on a 350, or 2011.
It's been 13. No, 11 I was living there. I lived there 11 and 12, so it would have been 13.
13 coming back on a 354 stroke. Graham Jarvis doing it on an FE250 at that stage, coming first. We got a 350 behind you now, and you're pretty stoked on it. We've been doing some riding, and you're pretty keen on it. What's it about the four-stroke that you're getting into and you're stoked on?
Maybe I'm getting older. No, back in the days, for sure. I was like, two-stroke for life, man, for sure. And then, like the roof in particular, I think the roof is quite suited to 4-strokes because it's definitely hard, but back then, I obviously haven't ridden it for a while, but there was nothing in the roof you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get up here? Like, you know, you're probably only getting off the bike 2 or 3 times at the roof. At my level at that time. Whereas Romaniacs, you know, you're off the bike all the time, right? And, you know, but I would say like 80% of the roof, it's technical, but you're moving. You're keeping going. And my take on it has always been like, the 4-stroke, generally, I mean, there's an exception to every rule, right? So zoomed out, you know, I know there's guys in the World Enduro Champs that absolutely haul on 2-strokes. But my take on it is, if the clutch is out, I'm actually better and faster and more efficient on the 4-stroke. As soon as the clutch starts to come in and it's you know, all the gold stuff for Romaniacs, that sort of thing, 2-stroke for sure. I think that is unarguable. But yeah.
It was interesting because we did a bit of a hard enduro ride here, actually inside your hometown, or just over the ridge here. And you were also in that same place, like when the clutch was out in the riverbeds and stuff, keeping momentum, just absolutely cruising. But when you stalled a few times, it was in that moment of like trying to get the clutch going.
We're on the Cardo comms. So you probably several times you would have heard the bloody 4-strokes. Pros and cons, like anything. But I think as well, like, you know, I've been riding motorbikes a very, very long time. And it's just nice to have a different flavor. Like, I think that's probably as much of it as anything else. Like at that stage, like riding the 350 in the roof, I'd experienced riding the roof of Africa, what would it have been? 6 times at that point. And I'd only ever done it on a 2-stroke, on a 300. Oh, maybe there's other ways to experience this.
For sure.
Racing the 500 in Romaniacs, like the main reason I wanted to race that bike in Romaniacs was because I didn't want to be competitive. Because, you know, ex-gold class guy, like I'm not a professional racer, but I'm a professional motorcycle rider. Riding silver class, it's all right. Okay, I'll ride the 500. At least I won't be competitive on that. Like you can't be competitive on a 500 in that event.
Just for you guys that you don't know what Chris did on the 500, you did win the silver class. So.
And then the first day I'm like, I am competitive, and I've made my life really hard for myself. Okay. Because the main reason I wanted to go back and do that was I just wanted to go and have fun. Like that event for me, it's so much fun. And it's all my friends from all around the world, all brought back together at one place at one time. I can't race gold. That ain't happening. I'm not racing gold at my age. My knees don't have it in them. My hips don't have it in them. And I genuinely can't be bothered. I've done it 10 times. That's enough.
And this is something that I think that you were speaking like offline and kind of off camera about, is just like some things that haven't changed inside hard enduro. And one of them is the races getting more and more difficult as the progression and the level of progression has gone up. So you were saying something like, you know, the riders, most riders always still, there is that one complaint of the track's too difficult, or, you know, that the difficulty of the track is difficult to get. So maybe you can get more into that about what hasn't changed actually in hard enduro since you began.
But getting that difficulty right, it's, you know, my heart goes out to the organizers, right? It's so hard to get that right. And, you know, especially now, like I can't imagine what it must be like now, because the guys that are setting it can't ride it. The level's too high. So you're just guessing, I guess, and just going, oh, I think this should be okay. But back in the days, like there was, you know, I remember Romaniacs, must have been like the 3rd or 4th time I rode it. We had a riders protest meeting. We're like, nope, everyone in one room, going to the organizers like, hey, we don't want to ride any more of these crazy downhills. Like, this is dangerous. Someone's going to get hurt. And I remember Martin handled it like a champ. He's like, I don't see a point. You're all here. What do you mean? Well, if you're at the top of the hill, unable to get down it, you'd have a point. If you're at the bottom of the hill in an ambulance, you'd have a point. You're all here. What's the problem?
That's a pretty good answer.
Okay, you derailed that really hard. I guess in my time with hard enduros, the complaint was that a lot of the organizers used to love ropes. So like Erzberg would have sections where they'd rope it was impossible. They'd rope every single rider up it. Hell's Gate, they'd rope every single rider up it. So it was a race to the first rope section.
Right.
And so now, as soon as the ropes come out, it's not a motorbike race anymore. It's just food for the cameras. And, you know, we're all paying to be here, not just to create footage sort of thing.
For organizers and
stuff. That was probably, when they made it that hard, when they made things that hard, it felt like you were almost being taken advantage of a bit. Like you just, you know, it looks unreal, like it makes Red Bull TV look amazing. But yeah, we've all paid a lot of money and put a lot in to get to here. And this is no longer a motorbike race. This is just a, you know, it's a show.
Yeah, it's a show. Yeah. And do you imagine all the bikes that get destroyed inside these sections as well? It's like, there's a lot of money goes into it. Like I did my first time doing Romaniacs last year as a fan of the sport. It's a lot of money to get to that race, and you know, to go throw a bike down a hill that you know you have to pay for. It's
but then there's the other side to it as well, right? Like it, you know, because you go racing these events for that huge challenge, and if you're not challenged, like, and the reward, the endorphin release sort of thing is to get to be taken into this really dark hole, absolutely knackered. I don't think I can do this, and then you find a way to get there, and you get this this amazing feeling at the end of it. So if it's not hard enough, you don't get that.
Good point.
And then that's a bummer too. So it is super, super hard to find that point. But I don't have an answer for it, but
And like, what they're doing inside the gold class these days is just insane. Like we see from Liet Live Maniacs, Liet being the sponsor there, showing off what these top guys are doing inside these sections, and it's just incredible the traction, the positioning that these guys can get in and out of on these sections. It blows my mind, and with the level of rider that's coming out, obviously we've got Manny and Billy, which are one of the top riders in the world, but Mario, and then some of the juniors like Mitch and Ashton Brightmore coming through that are just absolutely solid, coming from their trials background, and it's really good to see.
I think it's interesting what you say there, like coming from that trials background. There was most of the guys in my time of racing came from a trials background, but these younger guys that are coming through now, they're coming from a hard enduro background. Hard enduro in back in my days, hard enduro was something that people did as well as.
Okay.
You were an enduro racer and you did some hard enduro. You were a rally guy and you did some hard enduro. You always had to have something else because there weren't enough events. It wasn't enough of a sport really for it to be that, and it was too young, right? But there's guys getting into it now that, you know, they're coming off a 65. I'm a hard enduro racer. They're practicing log matrices at 65. On a 65. At 65 is also impressive. On a 65. So, and sure, they are riding the trials bikes as well, but they've got this mind and this eye towards the sport because it's established now. It is a thing. Whereas my generation, it was all something that we discovered, and then, you know, for guys like Graham and like the Hemingway brothers and that sort of stuff, it was something they did after trials. That's not the case anymore. Right?
Yeah, that's what the goal is to get the foundation skills, clutch control, balance, so that when they get on a big bike, it's solid. And that's kind of what Manny did with Andreas as well. Like Andreas saw that and was like, Manny, you're going to ride trials bikes, get the foundation.
But to that point though, like Manny was not a world trials championship level rider, right? He was a good trials rider, but he was never a world championship level guy. There's more to it than just be a good trials rider. Like I remember Dougie Lampkin, when he came into hard enduros for a while, and, you know, like he won everything in trials. He was the Tony Bow of his generation, and we're like, that's it, we're screwed. None of us are ever winning anything ever again, and it wasn't the case.
Yeah, different sports.
Yeah, like you can't argue that trials doesn't feed it.
Yeah,
but it's not a direct. A direct thing.
And then we also see, like, with Wade Young, second, like, number 2 inside the world for hard enduro. No trials background.
No.
Just hanging it loose on a junior in an 85. A YZ 85, a 250F. You know, just basically using other parts of, you know, the body to try to manipulate a motorcycle to get up and over and through sections, you know. So
it does look like hard work, though.
It does look like hard work. But speaking about like what you're doing now, so obviously you're ambassador for KTM. You're doing a lot of the adventure stuff. What is next for you? What do you work? Where can we see you next on the adventure stuff? So
very fortunate to kind of it's hard to say. Like I don't want to say like after a hard enduro. I guess it is, but I still really like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the life after hard enduro, getting into the adventure bike side of things, and for me that was like the thing I loved about Romaniacs and all those early days of hard enduro was that it was such an incredible adventure. Like I got to go and ride a motorbike in new countries, places I never ever thought I would ever get to go. Like living in New Zealand, like Chris, one day you're going to go and race a motorbike across Panama. Oh, am I? But I loved the adventure side of it, the new countries, meeting new people, and getting to ride a motorbike. And then adventure bike riding, sort of, it actually ticked all those boxes.
Right.
And I got paid, which was really nice. So I kind of ended up going into that side of things more, basically, because in the early days, I'll be totally honest, I did it because I was getting paid. And I wasn't making a living out of racing hard enduros, and I had a family, and like at some point, this is like it was all going to come crashing down.
Yeah.
And then I found out that I actually genuinely like riding adventure bikes, and the bikes have got so much better now. Like in the early days, we're flapping around on, under suspended,
right,
road bikes with big wheels, basically. Whereas, the modern adventure bike, like the 890s stuff, like these things rip off-road. They are so much fun to ride off-road. So now I get to go and have fun, ride new places, meet new people. Like all the buzz that I had from hard enduro, I'm getting that in the adventure bike, and I don't have to train anywhere near as hard, and I don't have to see myself bankrupt. So
yeah,
happy days. I'm very fortunate to have that sort of come into my life. We've got it's kind of a lot of events around the world coming up. Going to be back in Romaniacs in some capacity for this new adventure class. I'm going to do a really cool sort of extreme backcountry ride through Idaho and Utah this year.
Cool.
Doing what adventure bikes are really good for.
Yeah,
having an adventure.
That's really cool, and I think that's a really good place to end off with this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on for an episode, and it's been really cool to chat about kind of the nuances behind hard enduro, and then also where you are now with your adventure bike riding.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I be smoking on them off.